Hello, my friends. I know it's been a minute. I've been playing around with Operator. I have a lot of observations. I've recorded actually a lot of content, but nothing that has felt ready for prime time. But just based on some research, based on some tinkering, based on actually some of the latest information too that came out in the Neuron this morning, I'm gonna do something a little fun. So one of my favorite podcasts, keeping up with AI and just technology trends, is Hard Fork with Kevin Roose and Casey Newton. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give operators some very loose instructions to find the transcript of their latest podcast, identify particular articles that are mentioned, and then retrieve those articles and throw them into kind of like a table. We're going to do this in the chat because, as mentioned in the Neuron this morning, and as has been my experience, it can create an Excel spreadsheet for you. It can go into Excel Online, it can go into Google Sheets, it can go into a Google Doc, but it really seems to struggle at that. And it's something that I'm very curious to see if Operator can improve on in the future, because that'd be really nice if I could get a formatted document in Word. At the same time, though, when you think about the multimodal operations that this is already capable of, ChatGPT is actually capable of building a document itself in ChatGPT. It just has some constraints on the exact formatting that it can apply. But let's take a look at this. I think you'll all find this pretty cool. And let's see what it does. So what we're going to say is just keep it simple, right? Please conduct an analysis on the latest episode of the Hard Fork podcast. I'm going to specifically say on Spotify. Again, lessons learned as I've had these experiences where it will try to go the first time is New York Times. And if anyone has listened to the most recent episode, you'll know that the New York Times site is blocked. It's unclear if this is the New York Times side preventing operator from accessing the site, or if OpenAI is acting out of an abundance of caution because of ongoing litigation and is quite simply blocking its own operator from accessing New York Times. But we'll get there in a minute. So please conduct an analysis on the latest episode of the Hard Fork podcast on Spotify, review the text transcript, and identify any major news, articles, or specific products that are mentioned. Return those news article topics and products into a table in the chat. Once you have created this table, conduct additional research to provide links specific to the articles or products mentioned. Be sure to use intelligent search operators to find the exact topic that was mentioned. I'm curious what this is going to do. Again, this is going to be a live demo. I'm going to actually this time, unlike some of the previous ones, I'm going to upload this. This is going on LinkedIn. So if it's successful, it's successful. If it's not, we can reflect on it together. But let's see what it does. The reason I'm being very specific here is the last time it tried to retrieve information, it would search very generic things like Amazon drone delivery program. When the specific thing that was mentioned in the podcast, to kind of spoil some things, I highly recommend you listen to the full thing yourselves though, was about the shutdown of the program. And of course, when it just Googled for the program, the first link that it retrieved was not related to that shutdown. It was something that was actually sponsored by Amazon and it appeared higher in the Bing search results. So again, let's see where we go. As I mentioned on the previous video I did, if you tell it to go to specific sites and things like that, it will do that. If you don't, it's sometimes curious and interesting to see how it behaves. So this is a combination of giving it some direction to show the capabilities, but also a learning of when you're not hyper-specific, what will it do? Where will it go? So let's go on this journey together. All right. So let's pop this up. So it's going to do a search. All right, so it popped up the podcast on Spotify. And here it's going to run into its first obstacle, which is very, very interesting, right? So without logging in, it cannot access the transcript on Spotify. So what it's likely going to do is similar to the last time that I ran this. It's going to try to access the transcript via Spotify. It's going to click into the episode. So this is the latest episode, DeepSeek Deep Dive plus Hands-On with Operator and Hot Express. the our friends Kevin and Casey are very literal with their titles sometimes. Um, so was unable to find the transcript here. So now you can see it's going to look specifically for the transcript, and it's going to find that on one of these links. Let's see where it goes to first. It seems to skip sponsored links. So it skipped the sponsored link for Music X Match, whatever that said, and went straight to pod scripts. And on pod scripts, it's put in the podcast title. It's put in part of the name of the title, which should be enough to pop it up. Another thing I found that was very interesting is the last time I did this, we may or may not see that this time, there was a pop-up that came up at one point, and it actually caused operator to just stop. So in this case, it closed out of the pop-up. It has the transcript here. It's going to click into read more, and now it's going to read it. And if we recall the difference between operator and the actual ChatGPT model, if I were to copy paste all of this and just throw it into a chat, it would analyze it and respond within seconds. In this case, it actually has to read it with the way operator operates. So it's using that computer vision. It's taking screenshots to ingest the content. Again, there are obviously trade-offs to this behavior, but the concept with operator is that this is a very early introduction to the concept of agents who can use your browser. And in theory, right, this is operating a Linux browser within my own browser. I could pull up another screen. I could work on a completely separate task right now while it's doing this. Really amusing. Another thing that I found, this happened when I previously tested this. There are specific commentaries about operator in the podcast, and there are some things that tell operator where they talk about things they tried to have operator do. So this is ChatGPT getting very meta here. Not like the company, but it's getting very meta. It sees that there is commentary about operator doing things that maybe operator shouldn't do. Like I believe Kevin mentions trying to have it complete surveys online for money, which operator is not permitted to do. So in this context, we are going to say mark safe and resume, and we'll proceed to read. So unlike certain situations with our friends Alexa and Siri, where sometimes when they overhear us say something, and I'm looking at my Echo right now, but sometimes when they overhear us say something, uh, they'll react and they'll get very meta, right? They'll do something. Operator does not seem to engage with the content here and ever treat it like an instruction. So it seems like that's properly coded. Could be very interesting to see if there are people who attempt to put malicious code on websites, right? Like similar to the robots.txt component where they put something in there that actually tricks operator into behaving a certain way on the site. That's something that could get very interesting from an offense defense perspective for anyone who's kind of against this technology or concerned with it. And it'll be interesting to see how that's approached. But right now, this seems to work pretty well. And as I mentioned, right, a lot better if we look over here on the left-hand side at just popping this into the chat, right? So it has popped these different things. It talks about DeepSeek, which they talked about. It talks about the OpenAI agent operator. It's interesting that it didn't call it operator. It talks about the Fable app, which my apologies to Kevin and Casey, if they did talk about that, I don't remember it, but it's totally possible that they mentioned it during the Hot Mess Express or prior to that. Amazon drone deliveries, Fitbit, and Waymo, I do recall. So again, now let's see what it finds. So, all right. OpenAI has trumped its own operator by requiring a CAPTCHA. So let's complete the CAPTCHA for our poor little operator who is a robot and is not human. So we are going to lie and tell everyone that we're human, so it's not really a lie, but to give operator back control. So I'm going to give the ball back to operator. And the amusing thing is ultimately, it's probably just going to copy this link, which is fine. I think for the context of I asked it to find products, right? So it's not just going to look up news. That is the right thing to do at a high level when it comes to a product link, right? We found a link to operator, and if I wanted to do research on these things, and that's where I wanted to follow up after my assistant had done something for me, it makes total sense to take me to the actual operator site. Similar, right? Talked about the Fable app, and it's just going to retrieve that URL, and now it's got it in its back pocket. Where it will be more interesting and where I'm most curious to see if we have success is with the creative search operators to find news articles. So here we go. This is a much better search than the last time I did this. The last time I did this, it searched Amazon drone delivery program. So it seems like my more specific prompting saying to ensure relevance and to use kind of its knowledge, right? Uh, there we go. Now we actually have a link to the actual article, to the content that they talked about. So this is a huge improvement over the last time that I ran this when I was not that specific. But it's actually searching for the exact details. This is way smarter, and it's very interesting to see, you know, I think the here we go. Back to the New York Times thing. You get to see for real how it's unable to retrieve it from the New York Times. Let's simply copy the link. A separate user should be able to access this outside your browser. So we're going to instruct it to just copy the link because we know that we can actually retrieve this. And let's see what it does. Let's see if it understands this concept. It seems to. So it can still retrieve this New York Times content for me, and I could probably use that as a pre-prompt in the future, right? I could say, hey, if you go to New York Times and you can't access it, but the title seems right and the relevance in the search preview seems right, give me the link anyway. I pay for the New York Times. I love the New York Times. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to the lovely Kate Conger and Ryan Mack, who've done all sorts of amazing coverage over the Twitter saga. So love my New York Times peeps. Really appreciate the quality of that journalism. And here we are. Look at that. So operator just did all that in I think under 10 minutes. It should actually tell me, I think. I guess it tells you the individual things that it's done, right? So it worked for 3 minutes, 40 seconds, 1 minute, 33 seconds. I'd ask operator to do the math, but I'm not going to bother. But now we have a table over here. So what we can actually do, or other way around. Oh wait, wow. Look at me. Look at me already getting confused myself. But there we go. Back in here, because we're not engaging with the browser and we want to just see this. Look at the output here. So we have the topics and products that were mentioned. Mentioned DeepSeek, that was the first topic that they discussed. We have the OpenAI agent, Fable, Amazon drone deliveries, Fitbit, Waymo. So it's interesting what it titled some of these links. But we can see DeepSeek, right? Here's a solid summary, a very recent article about what do we need to know. It makes sense that without additional context, this is what it retrieved. Again, we have the link to Operator, so all the details from OpenAI. Today we're releasing Operator, all this summary, we retrieved that. We have a link directly to Fable, so if I wanted to learn more about the app, I could go straight in there. We have a link to the Amazon drone article. So there we go. If we wanted to learn more about the drone delivery pause, we have a link to the Fitbit settlement, which again, I have access to the New York Times. I'm a paying customer, so now it's going to load and I can see this. And finally, we have access to Waymo, to the Waymo article. Although what's interesting here is they actually talked about vandalism. So this made a mistake. This one, it's pulling a charity tipping feature, so it did pull the wrong article. In the grand scheme of things, it still went a solid 5 for 6, and we could ask it to focus on the vandalisms because maybe Kevin and Casey did mention the tipping feature. I remember primarily the Hot Mess Express piece being focused on the vandalism. Maybe there was a mention of a tipping feature in the transcript. I could ask this, I could have it retrieve it, but my memory was definitely centered on the vandalism piece. So that is something, of course, that if our assistant came back and gave us 5 out of 6, really would not be that difficult to say, hey, go back. Also, remember, it already copied all of this. It has it in its memory in the context of this chat. So if I said, could you refocus the Waymo piece on the vandalism and retrieve an article on that to replace the link you currently have in this chat? And I don't know why I said that the way I did in the cadence that I did, but now we're back in the browser. It's going to specifically look for the Waymo vehicle vandalism incident. This will be interesting too, because there are multiple incidents, but this is obviously the most recent incident with the street takeover. Here we go, Forbes. The other thing is, you can always tell it to use specific sites. As we can get more into, you do have the ability to log into these accounts, so you can give this access, right, in ways that it may not normally have. Right, so now we come back here. Now we have a better link, and I can actually read about the Waymo robotaxi vandalism. All right. So with that, I will stop sharing, and I will upload this for all of y'all to interact with. I'm curious what your thoughts are, what your feedback is. Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you want more of this content. Peace, love, all that jazz.